Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Scotch Malt Whisky Society's first virtual pub session of 2021. I'm Richard Gosselin. I'm the editor of the Society's members magazine, Unfiltered, and I will be your pub landlord as usual tonight. So first of all, Happy New Year to everyone. I hope you had as good a time as possible over the festive season under the circumstances, and I hope you're all doing well. Great to see you joining in tonight. We're hoping to bring a wee bit of light and warmth into the darkest days of January as we look ahead to celebrate the birth of Robert Burns, Scotland's national poet. His birthday, of course, approaching on the 25th of January. So we're just getting into the spirit and finding any excuse to have a good time during the circumstances we're living in. So we've got lots coming up tonight. We've got Burns poetry and music. We're going to hear a lot from Sam Gillespie and Shani Moody, who you may well be familiar with. We're going to hear about how to host your own online Burns supper this year with our guest, Alistair Heather. We're going to get some kitchen tips from Scotch Malt Whisky Society Executive Head Chef James Freeman, how to handle your haggis and how to prepare for your online Burns supper at home, and also about the special home dining experience that he's putting together for members and non-members as well. And we're going to have a whiskey-infused immortal memory from John McShane, the Scotch Malt Whisky Society Master Brand Ambassador. All that and the big Burns quiz, so you can test yourself to see how well do you know the Bard. Okay, all that coming up, but get involved as always. Give us a shout out in the comments. Let us know where you are. Let us know what you're drinking, and let us know how you are doing. But first of all, let me introduce my co-host of the evening. Some of you will recognize the face. He's been on before and he's done various other things for the BBC and elsewhere. Alistair Heather. Ali, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great, Richard. A very happy new year to you.
And to you, man. Good to see you. All well with you?
Yeah, as well as it can be, of course. You know, it's not the worst time of year if you're really into Rabbie Burns, which I quite am. So
I feel like it's, it just comes along at a brilliant time of year, because, you've come through Christmas and New Year, obviously different this time around, but you hit January and it's a wee bit of a low. So you need something on the calendar just to kind of lift the spirits a wee bit, don't you?
Exactly that. No, it's very well placed in the year, and it is the great thorn in the side of dry January, I think.
Well, yes, good luck to anyone who's trying dry January. I admire you and good luck, but it's not for me, not this year, not for sure. Right, let's crack on. We've got loads coming up, Ali. So I think we will just go straight to our first session first set of music, because we've got Sam Gillespie and Shani Moody standing by. I think you guys are down in the Borders, you said?
That's right, yeah, near Traquair.
Good stuff. So you've got some sets.
Homeland.
All right, yeah. You've got some Burns music lined up for us tonight. So I'll just let you take it away, Sam and Shani. Always brilliant to see you guys, and we'll be hearing from you throughout the evening. So over to you.
Nice one. Cheers. Thanks, Richard. Yeah, and Happy New Year to everyone. It's lovely to be back in the Whisky Society virtual pub. We miss playing there in person, but it's nice to be doing it online as well. Yeah, we love Burns and Burns songs. So we thought we'd kick off with one actually kind of that he wrote sort of in honor of himself in a way for his own birthday. I think he wrote it in, I think it was 1787 for his 28th birthday. So it's kind of sort of mythologizing himself a little bit and talking about the kind of momentous, portentous storm that happened when he was born.
It's such a great thing to do, and something we don't often do in Scotland. Mythologize ourselves.
So if you know the chorus, sing along. It's Rantin' Rovin' Robin. Was a laddie born in Kyle, but what the day or what the style? Doubt it's hardly worth the while to be so nice with Robin. Robin was a roving boy, ranting, roving, ranting, roving. Robin was a roving boy, ranting, roving, Robin. On a time most year but day was 24 days. Then a blast of January wind blew handsome in on Robin. Robin was a roving boy, ranting, roving, ranting, roving. Robin was a roving boy, ranting, roving, Robin. The gossip geek get in his loof, said he who lives will see the proof. This whaley boy will be nae coof, I think we'll call him Robin. Robin was a roving boy, ranting, roving, ranting, roving. Robin was a roving boy, ranting, roving, Robin. He'll have misfortunes great and small, but I a heart upon them all. He'll be a credit to us all, we'll all be proud of Robin. Robin was a roving boy, ranting, roving, ranting, roving. Robin was a roving boy, ranting, roving, Robin. And sure as 3 times 3 make 9, you see by ilka score and line. This whaley boy will like a pine, so leaves me on the Robin. Robin was a roving boy, ranting, roving, ranting, roving. Robin was a roving boy, ranting, roving, Robin. Robin was a roving boy, ranting, roving, ranting, roving. Robin was a roving boy, ranting, roving, Robin. Thanks, folks. Cheers. We'll sing one more song in this little set. We're going to do 3 short sets throughout the evening. So we're going to do another kind of sing-along. It's sort of it's a very well-known one. So if you do know it, feel free to sing along. It's Ye Jacobites by Name. So it's got a great kind of chorus. It's a little bit more of an intense one. It's kind of, I guess, sometimes Burns was thought of as being maybe sympathetic to the Jacobite cause at various times, but this song seems to be a sort of song of warning to kind of sort of tyrants, I guess, to say, you know, stop harrying the people. You know, we need peace. So yeah, it's kind of quite a humanitarian song in a way, like many of Robbie's songs. So we do a quick chorus in case people want to sing along.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's one of those ones. I mean, it was so difficult to choose which songs we were going to do, just like a couple of them of all the Burns classics. But yeah, this one is quite a popular one. So if you'd like to sing along, please do.
So the chorus goes, in case you're sitting there at home fancying a song. Ye Jacobites by name, lend an ear, lend an ear. Ye Jacobites by name, lend an ear. Ye Jacobites by name, your thoughts I will proclaim. Your doctrines I am blame. You shall hear, you shall hear. Your doctrines I am blame. You shall hear. So that's the chorus.
Yeah, you can even get the words up on a device of some variety.
Indeed. Okay, let's do it. We're gonna play it with an old tune called The Peat Fire of Flame, which I think actually comes from another song, but that's another story. Okay. 1, Ye Jacobites, my name, lend an ear, lend an ear. Ye Jacobites, my name, lend an ear. Ye Jacobites by name, your thoughts I will proclaim, your doctrines I will blame. You shall hear, you shall hear, your doctrines I will blame. You shall hear what is right and what is wrong by the law, by the law. What is right and what is wrong by the law. What is right and what is wrong, a weak arm and a strong, a short sword and a long, for to draw, for to draw, a short sword and a long, for to draw. Ye Jacobites by name, lend an ear, lend an ear. Ye Jacobites by name, lend an ear. Ye Jacobites by name, your thoughts I will proclaim, your doctrines I will blame. You shall hear, you shall hear, your doctrines I will blame. You shall hear what makes heroic strife, famed afar, famed afar. What makes heroic strife, famed afar. What makes heroic strife, to whet the assassin's knife, and on to parents' life with bloody war, bloody war, and on to parents' life with bloody war. Ye Jacobites by name, lend an ear, lend an ear. Ye Jacobites by name, lend an ear. Ye Jacobites by name, your thoughts I will proclaim, your doctrines I will blame. You shall hear, you shall hear, your doctrines I will blame. You shall hear. So let your schemes alone in the state, in the state. So let your schemes alone in the state. Now let your schemes alone, adore the rising sun, and leave a man undone to his fate, to his fate, and leave a man undone to his fate. Ye Jacobites by name, lend an ear, lend an ear. Ye Jacobites by name, lend an ear. Ye Jacobites by name, your thoughts I will proclaim, your doctrines I will blame. You shall hear, you shall hear, your doctrines I will blame. You shall hear. Cheers, folks. Thanks a lot. Thanks for the comments coming through. We'll be back in a wee bit with some more music. Thanks.
Absolutely brilliant, guys. Thank you very much. Loads of great comments coming in from your fans in Scotland and around the world. So lots more to look forward to. So great start to the evening. Thanks, Sam and Shane. We'll see you soon. Great stuff. How about that, Ali?
Oh man, like absolutely. Obviously, I wasn't on screen at the time, but I was singing along heartily at home. Those are two really banging tunes. My mama used to sing "You Jacobites" by name all the time when I was wee, and I was joining right in. It was great. But yeah,
sing along tune to get the blood pumping. Get the evening off to a good start.
Exactly that.
Ali, obviously, we're all stuck at home, so we can't gather in person to have a proper raucous, riotous, burn supper like we might be used to, unfortunately. But we've got to make the most of it. We're living an online digital existence to a large extent, and you just wrote a piece for Unfiltered magazine. There's a new issue out today, and you tackled the whole idea of how do you recreate the burn supper experience online. So from your point of view, what can we do to make the most of it?
So I was thinking about this. Again, the piece is up on Unfiltered, but there's a little bit more I'd like to add. One of the things that Burns lived his life through was he was a real man of letters. His was the age of having to connect with people at a distance. Some of his best work was through epistles. So his poems like Epistle to Davy is just a letter to his teenage pal, Davy Siller. And some of his great poems like Epistle to Todd LaPrake are just letters to people because he was also having to live at a distance to the people that he loved and the people he cared about. That was just bad communications, the fact that he had to move around. He was a peripatetic poet for part of his life. So Burns nights are particularly able to be shared at a distance because Burns's words are able to, they're able to touch the heart from quite far away. So I would say really try and engage with the poetry, really try and, when you're getting together with your pals, get the group chat going, distribute, give each other a poem to read. Even if it's somebody that's not that familiar with Scots, give them the Selkirk Grace, the dead simple starting note for all Burns suppers. If they're a bit of a public speaker, give them the Immortal Memory. We've got a cracker of an Immortal Memory coming up this evening. But yeah, try and get involved. Try and, in the way that Burns closed the gap between himself and his distant loved ones by really investing in his words and investing in his letters to them, we can invest in one another by learning some of these poems and sharing them. And of course, if you've got two broad musicians like those two, then you can really make a night of it.
Well, that helps, absolutely. And some good whiskey helps, I think, as well. That's a kind of essential component, right?
Absolutely. So I was talking about in the article some really nice whiskies to guide us through the evening. Obviously, this isn't a marketing exercise. People have their own drams that go along. But I was suggesting that the start of the night is always with a wee broth. So that may be a wee lentil soup. It might be a cock-a-leekie, something like that. And you want something that invigorates the palate, gets the energy going. You want something that adds a bit of early energy to the evening. And so we went, I left it up to you, Richard, and you picked Highland Baba, one of these guys. So this is...
I was intrigued by it, but, I think when you're starting the evening, you want something to kind of really liven up the palate, get the juices flowing. There's a sense of anticipation. You've got a great dinner ahead of you. You've got a great evening of poetry and speeches and camaraderie, but you want to start off the evening with something that really kind of livens you up. It really does get the juices flowing. And this is Young and Sprightly. It's cask 122.36. It's called Highland Baba, and it's from a distillery which just is on the across the boundary of the Highland line. Without giving too much away, it's not far from Balmaha. Can we put it that way? So it's been named Highland Baba, and there's a reference to Rum Baba in the tasting notes, which has been translated by our ever-inventive tasting panel to Balmaha Baba. And I have to say, there are lovely rum notes in this one, but it's 60.8% ABV. It's 7 years old, but it really is fantastic. It packs a real punch, but for me, it does the job in terms of like just waking up your palate and giving you a sense of, right, we're in for a good night tonight.
That's it. I've got such a sweet tooth, and this one's full of those like really light, sweety notes. The kind of like the boiled sweet, the kind of pear drop, that kind of really sugary confection, which is my jam.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's a cracking way to kick things off. So what you start the evening, the first speech is always what, the Selkirk Grey, Sally?
Yeah, so the Selkirk Grace kind of starts us off because you want to get folk fed early at a burn supper because whiskey is so present. You know, you're here to beer yourself. You want to get folks' bellies lined early doors. So you can't be fanning about with too many poems and speeches before you get a couple of courses done, folk. So the Selkirk Grace fires the starting gun. It's just a simple grace. It's some hae meat and canna eat. Some would eat but want it. We hae meat and we can eat. So let the Lord be thank it. So every day at primary school, we used to do that. We all had to close our eyes and do the Selkirk Grace. About I think 32 of us at my primary school in the countryside, and we had to do the Selkirk Grace. And it's just that it's giving thanks, and it's that Burnsian constant awareness of those that are less fortunate. Like when you're having a good time, didn't lose track of them that aren't, and be really appreciative of what you do have. It's onto the drams and the broth for there.
Absolutely. So we have our cockaliki soup. We can talk to James in a wee minute about how to make the perfect cockaliki. And then we're on to the main event. The haggis comes out. And obviously that involves its own poem. But, we need to move on to a different whiskey as well. First of all, let's talk about the poem then, Ali.
So the poem, it's the address to the haggis. And it is, on the surface, it's a very funny poem. It was the first one he got published in an Edinburgh magazine when he went to Edinburgh in 1786. And he was still the pluming poet, you know, he was still this unsophisticated rustic was the idea. But this poem shows his learning. The poem, when he was young, he read a lot of Alexander Pope, the great English poet. And one thing Pope did with his famous poem, The Rape of the Lock, was the mock heroic poem, where you take a really mundane thing and write a grand poem about it. So the address to the haggis is mock heroic. It takes the haggis, which is, you know, oats and offal and a bit of spice, and it's kind of boiled away, and it's tasty, but it wasn't in Burns's day anything special. Burns puts it at the center of this 8-verse heroic poem that demands to be kind of given out in a big performance, and it's very funny, but it's also an extremely high quality piece of verse. You know, the language, the rhythms, the word choice. He's utterly committed. It's got that Burnsian twinkle in the eye throughout, but it's a fantastic poem. I'll just give you one verse because 8's too many, eh?
Yeah, I thought maybe not do the whole thing, but give us a taster.
So just the poem's going along, and it's talking about the joy of the haggis and what it brings to the culture, and it pokes fun at the skinny malinky folk that didn't eat haggis, and it says, and the folk that do, it imbues them with certain characteristics. And the verse goes, but mark, the rustic, haggis fed, the trembling earth resounds his tread, clapping his wally neva blade, he'll mak it whistle, and legs and arms and heeds will sned, like taps of thistles. So it's this idea, and it's still very present in Scottish culture now. If you have a big hearty dinner, and you're big and thick-set and heavy, and you're full of stodge, you are a bit, you're ready for anything. You're ready for anything.
Brilliant. You just reminded me of the time my father did the address to the haggis at a home burn supper, but he got so carried away with it, and he was doing exactly that part in the poem that you've just been through, and he had the knife, Mark the Rustic, and all that, and then he was so in the zone in the moment that he managed to slash his hand open with the knife, but didn't really realize because he was in the moment, and then he's like this, and he was spraying blood around the room. It was like something out of Reservoir Dogs by the time he got to the end of it. So people, just be careful with the knives. That's a wee lesson for you. Don't get too carried away. But that's brilliant, Ali. So I think for the haggis, you know, I think most of you will have tried haggis, but for those of you who haven't, it's a fairly robust food stuff. It's a powerful, potent dish. So we need something fairly substantial to stand up to it in terms of a whiskey pairing. I've gone from the latest outturn for a spicy and sweet flavor profile, which is in this case it's the 13528, which is called Nice Wine, but it's more because this is pretty robust, and I think the spices of this one are going to be able to stand up to the haggis, and there's a nice crossover between the spiciness of the whiskey and that kind of spiciness that you get in a good haggis.
No, you absolutely nailed this one, because you don't want to go too peaty, because that can overcome, like the haggis has got the strong spices, and this brings those out really well. And yeah, if you go just that little bit, you can have a little bit of smoke in one of these in like a haggis pairing, but it needs to be strong and robust like this, but it like chimes the notes of the haggis really well, because it is haggis, man. Maybe in Burns's day it was pretty unsophisticated, but because it's such a cultural thing here, every butcher around me prides themselves on having the best haggis, and it's quite an investment, a labour of love these days.
Absolutely. Right, so that's a good drama, spicy and sweet, I think, to stand up to the main course. You've got your neeps and your neeps and your tatties, and all the rest of it. Dessert, Ali, what are we getting onto there?
So dessert, I should say Burns suppers, we're talking about them as if they're formal and strict. Burns suppers are all about enjoying yourself and connecting through the beautiful poetry of Burns. So feel free to improvise as you can. But the simplest dessert, the most popular one, is something called Cranachan, which is just a mix of oats and very sharp raspberries and thick cream. And you can chuck all sorts of honey in there and everything, but traditionally you add a whole load of whiskey in there too. It's a really simple, bashed up dessert, tastes very fine. And it's honestly, it's one of the ones you can make yourself so easily. So I'd say give it a bash. And you picked out a belter of an accompanying dram for this scene as well, haven't you?
Well, it's a wee bit different because this is 46-106, and it's called Something Caught Your Rye. We play in words there. But the giveaway from that is that this has been matured in a first fill rye hogshead. And I think this just works beautifully because the rye hogshead has really given it that oatiness. It's like, I can just see that pairing so beautifully with the Cranachan, with the toasted oatmeal. It's a beautiful pairing. You could have it along with your Cranachan, but if you were going to put some whiskey into the making of the Cranachan, then I think this one would also work absolutely superbly.
That's it, because you do have to really douse your Cranachan with a bit of whiskey. It adds that sense of convivial chaos to the evening that I think typifies a good Burns supper.
Definitely. So, there's loads of options. We've picked out these three in terms of different flavour profiles from the upcoming outturn, which is out next week. But obviously loads of options. I was thinking about a grain whiskey as well for the Cranachan, something lighter there. But it's like experiment, find your own pairings. And as Ali says, there's no strict structure to your Burns supper, but make the most of it, whether it's in person or online. But let's hear from someone who actually knows what they're talking about in the kitchen. We've got James Freeman, who is our executive head chef at the Society. James joined us just before Christmas to give us some tips about how to prepare the Christmas meal. And those tips came in very handy, I have to say, James. So the next occasion is Burns night. And, think the face of it is quite simple, but it's not really that simple, is it?
Well, I was going to say, compared to Christmas, this is definitely one where the chef should be having fun, not worrying too much about the food, and enjoying themselves. And as Ali said, enjoying the poetry and just enjoying the night. It's very much more a relaxed occasion for the cooking, for absolute sure.
It's certainly not as complex, is it, in terms of the menu? But what can we learn from a pro?
Well, I think the most important thing is really is the right haggis. I mean, as those of you who come to Queen Street or Leith or even Glasgow know, we've been using Finlay's haggis here for years and years, and I've never found better. So I think the most important thing is getting a really, really tasty haggis. It's got a good bit of spice to it, you know, a good bit of pepperiness, nice oatmeal, and a nice flavour. The difference in flavour in a haggis cooked in the stomach as well is immense as well. So I'd really say if you're getting a haggis, make sure and get a traditional one, not one of the ones that's in a bit of plastic wrap sort of thing. So yeah, and the neeps, you know, you want nice hard, not dried out neeps, so they're nice and orange. Don't forget a bit of nutmeg. And don't forget to season your potatoes. Plenty of butter in those potatoes as well.
Tell us about your Cranachan.
Cranachan. Well, I mean, I mean, these things are super simple. As you mentioned, you want to toast the oatmeal. I think that's what a lot of people forget. You really want to toast the oatmeal so that oatmeal flavor really comes out in the cream when you mix it through. And what you're doing with the whiskey and honey there, I mean, whiskey wise, I would kind of say maybe something like Highland. Again, you don't want much smoke in it, but a Highland or a Speyside, something that's maybe sherry cask, and you want to temper that whiskey in the cream with the honey, so that sort of sweetens it up and takes a wee bit of the sort of alcoholic hit out of it. But again, it's it's the easiest dessert in the world to make. Just mash up some raspberries. You stir up your cream. You don't over whisk it. That can be. You don't want to split your cream with your honey and your whiskey and your oats. Just kind of stir it up until it thickens, and then layer some crushed raspberries, some cream, crushed raspberries, and then you should really finish that off with some shortbread on the side as well.
Sounds magic. Any other tips?
Everybody's been talking about cockaliki there. I mean, which is lovely. The thing for that is just get a nice chicken. What we tend to do is poach the whole chicken in chicken stock with leeks and onions. Then we'll take that out, shred the chicken, cut up more leeks and onions, and add that back into it. Some of you might have heard of prunes getting served with cockaliki. A little bit of rice is great in a cockaliki as well. Prunes is really nice. I love prunes with a cockaliki. And you can actually soak your prunes in whiskey in a warm whiskey before you serve those, and that works really well as well. But I was going to say even simpler than a Cullen skink, and I think quite nice for a burnt supper as well is a Cullen skink, which is the smoked haddock soup. So that's going to be perfect with like an Islay whiskey, something sort of oily and coastal. But for that, all you do is you cut up some onions, potatoes, leeks, just all together, boiled up with a bit of chicken stock. In another pan, you just poach your smoked haddock and a little bit of cream and milk, bay leaf and nutmeg. And then when the haddock is cooked, you just combine the two pots together, and that is literally, you could make that for 10 people in about 15 minutes.
Brilliant. So, James, you've obviously been doing the home dining experience since fairly early on in lockdown. Yeah. And that's kind of going to the next level now, really. We're doing home dining, which has got nationwide delivery, and you're doing a special Burns Night edition of the home dining.
Night edition.
Tell us about that.
Well, we've put together a 3-course menu. It's not a traditional Burns supper. We've got haggis and sort of breadcrumb, and that's going to just get reheated in the oven. And then we've got a lamb shoulder, which is actually with prunes. Champit potatoes, which is sort of Scottish mashed potatoes with spring onions and kale. So yeah, really, really, really nice. And for dessert, we're actually doing a baba soaked in whiskey, and that's with rhubarb. I don't know if you know that rhubarb is really great at this time of the year, so we decided to use rhubarb there. And with that's going Crowdy cheese, which is a really nice Scottish cheese made by somebody in the Borders that I really, really like. So it goes great with rhubarb. And so yeah, that's selling fast. We're doing a collection, I think, on Burns Night in Edinburgh. I think national delivery slots are selling out really, really fast for that. So if you are interested, you should get onto that as soon as possible. But I think it's great value for that at the moment. And the guys have chosen 3 really nice whiskies to pair with all the courses. I think the first 50 boxes are getting, we got Finley's to make us 50 very small little haggis. The first 50 boxes are getting their own individual little haggis as well, that you can poach and put in the center of the table, sort of thing, to do the address to. So yeah, that's it's quite exciting going national. We've certainly got a lot more orders for next week. So yeah,
sounds brilliant. We'll look forward to it. So that's from Thursday the 21st to Friday the 29th of January, but also sat on the Saturday as well, Saturday the 30th, if you're in Edinburgh and Glasgow, right?
I think so. I couldn't tell you exactly the dates, but
right. I've got a note of them. So
you probably know better than me. I just start from Wednesday next week, and that's
yeah. Well, it sounds good, and I guess as Ali is saying, if we're having an online burn supper, then why not do the full online experience with the home dining kit? I can testify. I've had a couple of your home dining experiences, James. They've been absolutely sensational. I love the videos as well, because if you watch the video, the food, obviously you've done all the work. We just need to kind of do a bit of heating, and the video shows you how to plate it up. And then I feel like a total pro, because you're giving me wee tips on how to plate it up. And it makes me feel
the way.
Yeah. She can't believe it. Well, she knows I'm cheating. But
sleeping in the kitchen for days.
Yeah, it's all good. Brilliant, James. Nice of you to join us.
Happy New Year to everybody.
Right. Cheers.
Love the music.
Cheers. Right, good stuff. Well, that's us sorted for our burn supper, Ali. We've got the whiskey, we've got the food, we've got the poetry, obviously. How about that?
Honestly, my belly is rumbling. That sounds so tasty. I feel like an amateur. I was talking about, get some tatties, get some craddock in. He comes and he's talking about poaching a whole chicken in chicken stock. And oh man, that's what you want. That's good stuff.
That's all about. Tips from the pro. That's I'm taking notes here. So fantastic. Right, let's go back to Sam and Shani. They've got another set for us. So let's check in with them and see if they're ready to go. You all set, guys?
Yeah.
Good stuff. Great. I'll take it away.
Cheers. So we thought we'd start this set with a bit of a slower one, a more poignant one, called "Green Grow the Rashes," but it's also got a great chorus. So if you wanna join in, go for it. It's a really nice song. It's kind of celebrating the lassies, and I guess it would often sort of take its place in the toast to the lassies in a Burns night for that reason. But it's quite nice because it's, I guess Robbie had quite a few like challenges and misfortunes in his time, sort of working the very hard and productive land and difficult relationships and stuff. And but nonetheless, he's saying, in spite of all these cares that can surround you, the lassies redeem it all, and the time you spend with the lassies is the most golden time. Isn't that right, Shani?
Oh yes.
So we'll sing the chorus for you first, in case you want to sing along. Green grow the rushes, oh, green grow the rushes, oh, the sweetest hours that e'er I spent are spent among the lassies, oh. That's the chorus. And he's in this song. He says that basically that men are the prototype for the kind of perfection that was realized by God in creating women, or by nature. So there you go. Jesus. High praise from Robbie for womankind.
Robbie. Right.
So here we go. Green grow the rushes. Green grow the rushes, oh, green grow the rushes, oh, the sweetest hours that e'er I spent among the lassies, oh. There's naught but care in every hand, in every hour that passes, oh. signifies the life of man. 'Twere not for the lassies, oh, green grow the rushes, oh, green grow the rushes, oh, sweetest as the tale I spent among the lassies, oh, the worldly race may riches chase, and riches still may fly them, oh, and though at last they catch them fast, their hearts may ne'er enjoy them, oh, green grow the rushes, oh, green grow the rushes, oh, the sweetest as the tale I spent among the lassies, oh, but give me a canny out of tea, my arms around my dearie, oh, and worldly cares and worldly men all go topsy-turvy, oh, green grow the rushes, oh, green grow the rushes, oh, the sweetest as the tale I spent among the lassies, oh. Ye seduce, ye sneer at this, you're not but senseless asses, oh, the wisest man the world e'er saw dearly loved the lassies, oh, green grow the rushes, oh, green grow the rushes, oh, sweetest as the tale I spent among the lassies, oh, how nature swears the lovely dears, her noblest work she classes, oh, apprentice hand she tried on mine, then she made the lassies, oh, green grow the rushes, oh, green grow the rushes, oh, sweetest as the tale I spent among the lassies, oh, green grow the rushes, oh, green grow the rushes, oh, the sweetest as the tale I spent among the lassies, oh.
Oh, they are really lovely words. Okay. It's very nice. This next one is a wee bit more raucous. Sam, do tell.
Well, we figured maybe this one was a good one for a pub night because it's a kind of a sort of bacchanalia that celebrates basically an occasion on which Robbie's pal Willie Nicol brewed a big barrel of home-brewed ale, and him and another friend went round and got kind of fairly steaming on this homebrew, and he wrote a song in celebration of this occasion. And I think he was of the opinion, apparently, that there wasn't many kind of bacchanalian songs in the Scots tradition, but he thought that the ones that there were excellent, and we were in need of more. So he wrote this to kind of contribute to the tradition of bacchanalian revelry songs. So it's a really great song. It's kind of basically three pals sitting around drinking and kind of having a really great time of it, and also a chorus in which they assert that they're not that drunk, which is kind of funny. And they clearly were. So yeah, again, it's got a good chorus. If you know it, sing along. But maybe we could sing the chorus once through before we start. This is the chorus of insisting you're not that drunk. We are nae fou, we're no that fou, but just a drappie in a ree. The cock may craw, the day may daw, but I will taste the barley brie.
Oh, it's great. Oh, your poor dad who is doing dry January. This
Oh
will-
yeah. Well done to everyone doing dry
Yeah,
January.
definitely.
Yeah. Fortitude. Bon courage. So yeah, let's do it. The Willie brewed a peck of malt. The Willie in question was Willie Nickel. Willie brewed a peck of malt and Robin Allen came to see. Three blithe hearts that lie long night you wouldn't find in Christendom. We are nae foo, we know that foo, but just a droppy in our ear. The cock may crow, the day may daw, but I will taste the barley. Here are we met, three merry boys, I trow are we. And many a night we've merry been, and many more we hope. We are nae foo, we know that foo, but just a droppy in a reel. The cock may crow, the day may daw, and I will taste the barley. It is the moon I can her horn a blinking in the lift, say he. She shines so bright to while us same, but by my sooth she'll wait. We are nae foo, we know that foo, but just a droppy in the ree. The cock may crow, the day may daw, and I will taste the barley. First to rise and gonna water cook, old coward loon is he. The first beside his chair shall fall, he is the king among us three. We are nae foo, we know that foo, but just a droppy in a ree. The cock may crow, the day may daw, and I will taste the barley. We are nae foo, we know that foo, but just a droppy in a ree. The cock may crow, the day may daw, and I will taste the barley. Thanks, folks.
Cheers.
Absolutely beautiful,
We're
guys.
actually drinking homebrew tonight. Homebrew beer.
Just a little bit.
It was the perfect drink to match with that song.
Yeah. As long as you're not too foo.
Yeah,
Exactly.
honestly, we're not that food.
No, you're not. Brilliant, guys. Well, thanks for that. We'll come back to you later on, but thanks for just now. Brilliant stuff, Ali.
Just terrific. Like that voice and that classic are quite the pairing. We were talking about whiskey and food pairings. That classic and voice go together immaculately. So I hadn't heard of these guys until you started doing these YouTube lockdown sessions, and I can't wait to get doing the vaults or whatever and see them playing in person. It'll be great. It'll be a great moment.
Well, they're fantastic, and for people who are regulars at the vaults, they will know Sam and Shani because they do a weekly session at the vaults. So it's one thing to hear them online, but to be there live in the vaults and listen to them playing live music is really fantastic. So yes, look forward to that. But great to have them on board tonight. But now we'll move on, because an integral part of any Burns supper, as you all know, is the immortal memory. We gather to celebrate the life and the work of Robert Burns, our national poet. And immortal memories can span all kinds of different themes about Burns's life. And, I certainly find, I'm sure you're the same, Ali, that every time you read up something about Burns, you find out something new. And every immortal memory you hear brings something else to life that you didn't realize. You think you know about Burns, but there's always more to be told. So we thought we would ask our master brand ambassador, John McShane, to look at the immortal memory from a whiskey perspective. You might not be surprised to hear. So let's say hello to John this evening. John's taken on this challenge. John has made a huge effort, not just in making a speech, but in getting dressed for the occasion and looking absolutely splendid.
Won't behave.
Now, John, it's not like these newsreaders that sit there with a shirt and tie on, and they've got their shorts and their flip-flops under the desk.
I know Rachel McNeil's on the call here, and when we had the pre-call the other day there, Richard, Rachel said, I presume you'll be wearing a kilt. And I said, yes, I'll wear a kilt. I was thinking maybe of a T-shirt on top. And Rachel put on social media that I was going to be in full Highland regalia. So thanks, Rachel. This is for you.
But how can we trust you, John? You're sitting there. You could be wearing your shorts.
I know. What can I do? What can we do?
Get that camera moved down. There he is.
There we go.
Oh, he's got the sporran and everything. Fantastic. Right, John, we'll have messed up your camera. I just wanted to be sure. Right, yeah. John, we'll hand it over to you for the immortal memory to Robert Burns.
Okay. Thank you. Look at this. I should just take it off, shouldn't I? Anyway, folks, welcome to you all, members and friends. And I've seen that there's many of you from England and across Europe as well as Scotland. So welcome. Welcome to a moment when we gather to acknowledge and celebrate one of Scotland's greatest sons, to revere his life and work and raise a glass to him in his memory with the drink he savoured, wrote many words about, and through his own fame spreading across the world, helped spread the word about Scotch. A whole world audience now appreciate Scotch, and that's been contributed to over the 225 years since his passing and continues now. So one of the interesting things about Scotch is that Michael Jackson, the famous beer and whiskey writer, wrote 10 years ago, Scotch is the only drink in the world that you can ask for anywhere in the world by reference to nation alone. Anywhere in the world you can ask for Scotch and they know what you mean. You don't even have to use the word whiskey. And that's partly down to Robert Burns and perhaps one of his most famous poems, Scotch Drink, which we'll touch upon later on. Now that word Scotch, back in Burns's time, men and women of Scotland were known as Scotchmen and Scotchwomen. Nowadays, of course, we are known as Scots, and Scotch is reserved for categorising the whiskey that comes from Scotland. We're called Scots, maybe apart from England. England tend to refer to us as jocks. Don't mind that. I have one of my best friends, when I started work with him 30 years ago, in the first week or two, he kept referring to me as Scotty. Now, one lunchtime after we'd had a couple of pints, I kind of got a little bit irritated and it showed. And I said, Dennis, would you please stop calling me Scotty and I'm going to beam you up somewhere? And he said, okay, John, okay, is Jock all right? I said, Jock is fine. And within 3 months, everybody in the company was calling me Jock. I don't mind that. Get Johns everywhere. Jocks are usually associated with Scotland, you know. So we celebrate Burns on the 25th of January, but really the celebrations go right through January. In Scotland, it's the culmination of the winter season, starting at St Andrew's Day on the 30th of November, going through the festive season and Hogmanay to Burns Night. In fact, here's a wee fact that you might not know. You know, Hogmanay is a big thing in Scotland. And during December, the word Hogmanay is used as the future tense of the verb to be hung over. There you are. Maybe you didn't know that. And of course, our drink of celebration is Scotch. And the story of Scotch is closely intertwined in its early years with Robert Burns, our national bard, who made whiskey our national drink. Apart from his influence around the world, where there are more statues of Burns than any other non-religious person, apart from Queen Victoria and Christopher Columbus, Burns engaged with the issues of his time, and development of whiskey in Scotland was definitely one of those. He was first and foremost a poet, of course. It's amazing that an Ayrshire ploughman could come to be one of the most celebrated poets in world history. His works have been translated 3,000 times into more than 50 languages. He really is the world's poet coming from Scotland. His song, Auld Lang Syne, that Hogmanay and special occasions anthem around the world, is the second most sung song in the world. It's only beaten in terms of singing number of times by Happy Birthday, would you believe? And he lived in a period in history known as the Scottish Enlightenment. And many people say in the 18th century, Scotland led the world in economic theory, political thinking, academia, and the arts. Voltaire, the radical pre-revolutionary author in France, said, "We look to Scotland for all our ideas of civilization." But it was said that Voltaire would say anything for a few drams. And Arthur J. Herman, in more modern times, American author, said Scottish Enlightenment was no less than the reordering of human knowledge. So there you are. In the midst of all this was Robert Burns, writing poems in empathy with the common man, writing poems about Scotch whisky and its feeling for man's feeling for it, with a view that all men are equal and deserve the respect of each other. That comes through loud and clear in Burns's works. A man's a man for all that, his most famous work in that theme. He grew up on his father's farm working the plough, but he had a personal tutor, John Murdoch. And John Murdoch taught him French, which he could speak fluently, and he also knew Latin very well. Some scholars wonder how much he might have achieved given his great intellect and his clear vision if his life hadn't been cut so short at the age of 37 in 1796. Whisky was a drink across all of the people in Scotland, in all of the classes. Although some saw Scotland as quite egalitarian then, there were nobles and common man as well. And the 18th century was a tumultuous time for Scotch as well as Scotland. In 1784, the Wash Act was passed. The Wash Act, through different tax rules, north and south, through process differences, north and south, created the Highlands and Lowlands regions, actually. But it also removed a tax privilege from a distillery called Ferrentosh. It was owned by Duncan Forbes of Culloden. And as a result of his support in 1690 for King William against the Jacobites, he was granted tax freedom in production of his whisky, which made it cheaper. So it was extremely popular. We Scots like a bargain. But this was withdrawn as part of the Wash Act. So Burns took to his pen to speak for all Scotland's whisky drinkers when he wrote, aiming at the Scots MPs in Westminster, an author's earnest cry and prayer. Tell them, ho hey, the chief direction, Scotland and me's in great affliction. Erson they laid that cursed restriction on aqua vitae, rouse them up to strong conviction and move their pity. But the Wash Act and another act which followed in 1786 raised taxes on Scotch at the behest of London gin distillers, aghast at the competition, couldn't stop the inexorable rise and popularity of Scotch. In 1770, the first distillery in Glasgow was founded, and the modern Glasgow Whisky Distillery Company today uses that year 1770 in its branding as an acknowledgement to its forefathers. The first licensed distillery in Scotland was in 1772 at Little Mill Distillery, so Scotch was developing strongly. But in his poem Scotch Drink, which I mentioned earlier, in 1785, Burns still bemoaned the loss of Ferrentosh and the actions of the good folk of the excise. O whisky, soul of plays and pranks, accept a bardie's grateful thanks. The Ferrentosh was sadly lost. Scotland lament from coast to coast. Now colic grips and barking host may kill us all. For loyal Forbes' chartered boast is ta'en awa. They cursed horse leeches o' the excise and make the whisky stills their prize. Hold up your horn, deal, once, twice, thrice, and seize the blinkers. and bake them up in brun-stained pies for poor damned drinkers. Fortune of thou but gimme still, hail breeks, a scone and whisky gill, and routh will rhyme to rave at will, take all the rest, and dealt about as thy blind skill would directs thee best. So two things about those verses from Scotch Drink. It's a long poem, there's a couple of verses. Firstly, after his lines of the cursed horse leeches of the excise, a bit ironic that in his latter years, Burns did actually become an exciseman based in Dumfries. But I have it in good authority, he was quite a nice exciseman. Okay? And his last verse of that section of the poem tells about his joy and pleasure from friendship and interaction, oiled by Scotch. I would like to think that Burns would have been an enthusiastic member of the society today. He would have loved the whisky, the camaraderie, the interaction, the crack, the stories, the tales, and even the information provided in Scotland and its whiskies, and even world whiskies now, through a blog and Unfiltered and the rest of it. He may even have been prompted to write a poem celebrating English whisky. Or maybe not. Anyway, although we might have had to open a venue in Ayr for him. Burns was from Ayrshire, and Ayr is the capital of Ayrshire, as it were. And Burns wrote these lines: all there, whom ne'er a town surpasses, for honest men and bonny lasses. And to tell you what, the Ayr United football team, to this day, has as its nickname the Honest Men. So much of Burns from the 18th century carries forward into our lives and the lives of people around the world. So he loved social life and he loved his whisky. One scholar in Burns suggested in an essay that Burns didn't taste whisky until he was 22 years of age. This scholar also suggested that Burns lost his virginity at the same time and the same place. Now, I'm not sure where he got his information from, but anyone who's read Burns' life story and works could find it hard to believe that he was 22 years of age before either of these things happened. In 18th century Scotland, the water of life was ubiquitous, and Robert Burns, we know, had a very roving eye for the opposite sex. I don't think so. I don't think he was 22 when these things happened. It's also said by many learned scholars that he was a moderate drinker. He drank responsibly, unbelievably, for the 18th century, but many people say it. Although you read his famous poem, Tam O'Shanter, it's clear that he might not have overdone it, but he certainly knew people who did. So here's a wee bit of his poem, Tam O'Shanter. When Chapman Billies leave the street, drouthy neighbours and neighbours meet, while we sit boozing at the nappy and getting foo and unco happy. A blethering, blustering, drunken blellum, that frae November through October, I market day there wasnae sober. And at his elbow, Suitor Johnny, his ancient, trusty, drouthy crony. And that's a long poem, fantastic, if you ever want to read it. And you can get it in any of the languages who are listening here today, I am sure. And Burns saw whisky as the cure for many ills, even to settle differences between friends. When neighbours anger at a plea, and just as wood can be, how easy can the barley bree cement the quarrel? It's aye the cheapest lawyer's fee to taste the barrel. And as a cure for his anxiety and depression, Burns' life wasn't one smooth road of happiness. He had his moments, you know. And in one of those poems, he wrote about how Scotch actually could take him out of himself and make him feel happy again. Food fills the wame and keeps us living. Though life's a gift no worth receiving, when heavy bagged with pine and grieving. But, oiled by thee, the wheels of life gae downhill screeving with rattling glee. So, Robert Burns and whisky. Scotland's national bard, Scotland's national drink. Burns was a passionate devotee to freedom of man. Lots of his work married together his thoughts and feelings with man and whisky, letting mankind lose his inhibitions and express themselves freely. As expressed by Burns, freedom and whisky gang together. And that has become a familiar toast in Scotland and around the world. It's not a political statement. It's just about freedom from things in life which are wearing you down. The church, for example, where Burns had to sit in a naughty seat once after fornication with Jean Harmer. So things like that, get them down. Whiskey and camaraderie with your friends could lift you out of all of that. Burns left a legacy of respect for our fellow man and our national drink. He captured the vital spark of not just what it is to be Scottish, but what it is to be a feeling, honest human being. Describing himself in a dedication to the noblemen and gentlemen of the Caledonian Hunt, he spoke of himself thus: a Scotch bard whose highest ambition is to sing in his country's service. The poetic genius of my country found me, as the prophetic bard Elijah found Elisha at the plough, and then threw her inspiring mantle over me. She whispered to me to come to this ancient metropolis of Caledonia and let my songs be honoured under your protection. And he ends that long dedication in usual style. May pleasure ever be your party, and may social joy await your return. Enjoy your whiskey. So my fellow members and friends, let's toast this day. Let's for a moment forget the trials of 2020 and the problems yet still to come. Burns would have said, use whiskey, live for the day. So, here's a bottle and an honest friend. What would you wish for mair, man? Who knows before his life may end what his share o' care might be, man. So catch the moments as they fly and use them as ye ought, man. Believe me, happiness is shy and comes not aye when sought, man. So let us toast John Barleycorn, each man a glass in hand, and may his great posterity ne'er fail in old Scotland. Robert Burns, Slanjiva.
Slanjiva, Robert Burns.
That was terrific. That was terrific.
Thank you, Ali.
Fantastic, John. That was an absolute treat. I think the one thing I took away from that was, if only Robbie Burns was a member of the Scotch Malt Whisky Society, how much would I love to sit down with that man for an interview?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Fantastic. Thank you very, very much, John. You've got loads of fans all over the world joining in and sending in comments how much they enjoyed that. So great stuff. Great to see you, and cheers for the immortal memory.
Cheers.
Brilliant.
All the best, guys.
You're very good. All the best for 2021, eh?
Great stuff. Right. Oof. Right, that got us fired up. But I want to play a wee bit of more music. Ali, we've got we're going to come back to Sam and Shani for the final set, but I've got a wee pre-recorded treat for us. It's a pal of mine called Donnie Livingston, and he's been on the pub sessions before, and he recorded a song, a Burns song for us in autumn last year called Now Westland Winds. And for anyone that doesn't know it, it's a beautiful song. And apparently Burns wrote this when he was 16 years old. And when you listen to the words, it's quite hard to believe that an immature man could come up with the verse like this. It's a poem about the arrival of autumn, the westland winds, and the start of the shooting season. But it's a love song to the season, but also to the girl that he was talking about at the time, called Peggy. So, but it also encompasses exploitation of the natural world. There are different themes in there, and when you think that Burns wrote this at the age of 16, it's just quite astonishing that he had that maturity and that vision about the world. So this is a wee pre-record of Donny Livingston with Now Westland Winds.
Now whistling winds and slaughtering guns bring autumn's pleasant weather. The moorcock springs on whirring wings among the blooming heather. Now waving green wild o'er the plain delights a weary farmer. The moon shines bright as I rove at night to muse upon my charmer. The partridge loves the fruited fells, the plover loves the mountain, the woodcock haunts the lonely dells, the soaring hern the fountain. Through lofty groves the cushrat roves, the path of man to shine. The hazel bush o'erhangs the thrush, the spreading thorn the linnet. Thus every kind of pleasure find, the savage and the tender. Some social join and leagues combine, some solitary wander. Avant away the cruel sway, tyrannic man's dominion, the sportsman's joy, the murdering cry, the fluttering gory pinion. So Peggy dear, the evening's clear, thick flies the skimming swallow. The sky is blue with fields in view, all fading green and yellow. Come let us stray a gladsome way and view the charms of nature, the fruited thorn, the rustling corn, and every happy creature. We'll gently walk and sweetly talk till the silent moon shines clearly. I'll grasp thy waist and fondly pressed swear how I love thee dearly. Not vernal showers to budding flowers, not autumn to the farmer, as dear can be as thou to me, my fair and lovely charmer.
Very nice. Now Westland Wins by Donnie Livingston there. Good stuff. Wee bit more music to add into the mix. Right, Ali, I think it's time for our big Burns quiz. What do you think?
Here we go. Absolutely. It's what I have these, like, we've got all these folk jumping at the chat. They're from all over the world, and I'm really excited to get them engaged. So the way we're going to do it this time, 10 questions, right? I'll ask 5, Richard will ask 5. There's some great fun facts in there. It's very much kind of quick on the draw with your answers. So get into the comments section. I'll get the comments up in my screens. I'm seeing folk from all around Scotland, all around the world. If you've been listening over the course of this evening, some of the answers have come up, right? So get your pencils ready. We're going to start with question 1 of 10, okay? Question 1. Where was Rabbie Burns born? Where was Robert Burns born? Is it A, Glasgow, B, Ayrshire, C, Edinburgh, or D, Dumfries? Is it A, Glasgow, Ayrshire, Edinburgh, or Dumfries? I'll give you a wee minute to get your answers together. I've got Andy Cotton with Alloway. I've got Kevin Ross. We've got a bunch of B's. We've got some D's there. The answers are flooded in. So yeah, absolutely. So the answer, in fact, I'll give just a wee second. So I've got some D's for Dumfries. I've got some, I'd say the predominance are for B's, and there's a few D's in there. And the answer is B, it's Ayrshire. D, Dumfries is where he died. There's statues of him everywhere. He's got a very strong association with Dumfries. But you're absolutely right. Mark Lindsay just landed the road for me and brought a ferry. Alloway is that was his local historic kirk that his dad helped look after. So it's Ayrshire, and the cottage that his dad built his cottage in Ayrshire by hand, and that's still there. It's a fantastic 5-star rated visitor attraction. Well done, Abdi. On to question 2. Where did Burns plan to emigrate when he was down on his luck in 1786? Where did Burns plan to emigrate? Is it A, Australia? Is it B, Canada? Is it C, Jamaica? Or is it D, the United States? I've got that back to front. I'll read it off the screen now. Is it A, Australia, B, Canada, C, the United States, or D, Jamaica? I think it was a French writer that say, rats and Scotchmen get in everywhere. So any of these answers could be correct. I've got Jamaica, I've got Canada, I've got United States for Ali Spencer there. I'll give you a wee second to get your answers out. Australia, Canada, United States, Jamaica. I'm seeing some United States. I'm seeing some Jamaica. I'm seeing E, the Maldives, or Maldives. Good effort, Stephen. Isn't it that? Jamaica. The answer is, of course, D, Jamaica. At that time, he had accepted for the 3rd time the job of helping manage a slave plantation and had booked his passage. But he didn't go. He instead published his poetry, received some success from that, and decided to stay where he was. It's one of the great thorny issues that biographers of Burns have to wrestle with. So 3, and I said this earlier on, so Abdi that's paid attention gets bonus points here. What is the first speech made at a traditional Burns supper? So we ran through Burns suppers earlier on. What's the first speech? Is it A, the address to the haggis? Is it B, the immortal memory? Is it C, the toast to the lassies? Or is it D, the Selkirk grace? I've got some B's. Selkirk grace, Andy Cotton straight in. What other answers do we have? The address to the haggis. That big highfalutin number. I've got some D's. Selkirk. Aye, Richard, you're absolutely nailing it. D's, 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 D's. It's looking like my high school results here. A flood of D's.
Easy one, or they were paying attention.
Exactly that, exactly that. So it's, of course, the Selkirk Grace, the dead simple thanksgiving for everything that we're enjoying. The next question, question 4. Question 4. Let us know how you're getting on as well, and be honest. Question 4. What job did Burns take after leaving Edinburgh? What job did Burns take after leaving Edinburgh? Plowman, A, so went back to his roots. B, teacher or dominie in Burns' Scots. C, an exciseman. Or D, a full-time poet. So Burns started life out on a farm. Did he go for being A, a ploughman, B, a teacher, C, an exciseman, or D, a full-time poet? First, an interesting question there, but we'll have to get back to it. We've got some D's, we've got some D's, we've got some C's, exciseman, full-time poet. The vast preponderance of folk have been paying razor-sharp attention. He went on to be an exciseman, ironically, as mentioned in the immortal memory there. And he was involved in a big seizure of a smuggling ship in 1792. So his life had plenty of adventure packed into it. 5. This is halfway through. Which musician, and it's a favourite musician of mine, and I'm sure a lot of yours, which musician said that Burns' poem, A Red, Red Rose, is his greatest source of creative inspiration? Which musician said, Red, Red Rose is his greatest source of creative inspiration? Is it A, Tom Waits? Is it B, Randy Newman? Is it C, Woody Guthrie? Or is it D, Bob Dylan? I'll give you just a wee second with that. This hasn't been mentioned tonight, so this is going straight off your knowledge. I think Ian Kerrin there is answering C for Woody Guthrie. I'll wait and see how the times stack up. Kevin Ross has given us a D for Big Bobby Dylan. Les Harrow, Bob Dylan. Hey, look at this. Richard, they're a switched on bunch, are they?
Absolutely.
They ken their ingans, as my granny used to say. They know their onions. Got a C, got some, most of these. It is, of course, Bob Dylan. Bob Dylan selected Burns as his inspiration for the HMV campaign. He actually owns a house in Scotland. He spent a lot of time in Scotland. He's invested heavily in Scotland, and he was really into the works of Rabbie Burns. I was thinking that earlier on with the song that we heard, Coming Through the Rye. It's a very Bob Dylan-esque song. It's very hard to pin down exactly. And Ye Jacobites by Name, it's got that Bob Dylan-esque of it seems to constantly just evade your exact comprehension, and it's packed with real imagery. Beautiful music. I'll pass over now to Richard. So hope you're getting all right after 5 questions.
I thought you were doing such a good job. You might want to carry on there, Ali.
Oh, no, please, please.
Okay, right. Where are we? We're question 6.
Yep.
What song traditionally brings a burnt supper to a close? And again, if you were paying attention, this should be an easy one. Is it A, Auld Lang Syne? Is it B, Flower of Scotland? Is it C, Sunshine on Leith? Or is it D, Loch Lomond? All great songs, and they could all bring any evening to a fitting close, I think.
Aye.
But which one is traditionally sung at the end of a burnt supper? Quite an easy one, really. I mean, we've already heard John talking about how this song is basically an international anthem, and no great surprise that the correct answer is Auld Lang Syne. It's kind of remarkable to me, Ali. Maybe you can give me your thoughts on it. But Auld Lang Syne is an international anthem. It's used all over the world. It's been translated around the world. But ultimately, maybe not that many people really know what it means. But and even if we think we know what the sentiment means, there's still language in there that is challenging, like a willy wacht and a language like that. You know, it's difficult.
It is. It's certainly difficult, but there's something about the constant repetition of the refrain and some of the lines, like one for me, like, we twa hae paddled in the burn, fae morning sun till dine, but seas atween us braid hae roared since Auld Lang Syne. That thing of, we spent our childhoods together and now we're apart. I think the reason this lasts so long is because Burns was writing at the start of the global era. His pals were often the States and Canada, often the Caribbean. And Auld Lang Syne, that sense of being unjustly separate for your best pals, is something that strikes true. I used to have a Polish girlfriend, and I was in the Polish mountains for Hogmanay one year. And when the bell struck, so there was about 40 of us at some hostel up in the mountains, a New Year, they all started singing Auld Lang Syne. These folk that couldn't speak a word of English to me for the entire week that they were there, all suddenly had the entirety of it learned. It truly is. Scots talk about it being international, but when you see it out there in the wild, as it were, being sung in the Polish mountains at Hogmanay, you realise, hold on, this seems really carried. This is really impacted.
Absolutely. I think it hit me when I was in Japan, and the traffic lights, when you press the button and then the green man goes and it plays the tune to Auld Lang Syne when you cross.
No, it doesn't.
I swear, and it's part of their culture, you know. But and maybe they don't associate it with Robert Burns, but the fact is, this is a direct connection with Burns, which is all over the world. Maybe we don't appreciate that, but it's a real thing. Right, I'd better crack on. We could be talking about this all night. Question 7: what famous book takes its title from a Burns poem? Right, who is literary minded here? Is it A, 100 Years of Solitude, B, The Catcher in the Rye, C, Heart of Darkness, or D, The Sound and the Fury? You familiar with all these books, Ali?
I've read the majority of them. I haven't read the 100 Years of Solitude, but I've heard good things.
Right, let's see. Have we got some answers coming in? Adam says C, The Heart of Darkness. I think that's for this question. Harry's saying B.
Catcher in the Rye.
Let's see. Maybe a wee bit slow with the connection. D. Rachel's saying D, The Sound and the Fury. Lizzie's B. Kind of all over the place with this one, I suppose. Wee bit tricky.
I didn't think. I'm seeing almost nobody's saying A. Robbie Burns never experienced solitude. It wasn't his vibe.
But you never know. It's a kind of poetic sentiment, isn't it? And you just
not quite right.
I felt like any one of these could have come from Burns. But the correct answer is The Catcher in the Rye, the 1952 novel by J.D. Salinger. Many teenage boys like myself, maybe they came across that book and fell in love with it, but didn't realize at the time that it had a direct connection with Burns. And Salinger took the title from the Burns poem Coming Through the Rye. And there's a scene in the book where the protagonist, Holden Caulfield, he's in a field of rye and he imagines all these children running towards the edge of a cliff, but they're too short to see over the height of the rye, and his job is to try and catch them before they fall over the edge of the cliff. You know, lots of metaphors going on there, but he took the title from Burns's poem Coming Through the Rye. Another fun fact of Mice and Men, John Steinbeck obviously comes from To a Mouse, the best laid schemes o' mice and men gang after gley, which Steinbeck took it as his title for the novel. And I thought about that and I thought, my goodness, is that not an appropriate quote for the times that we're living in? You can make any kinds of plans that you want, but you never know when they're going to go agley and you're going to be left changing your plans. Right. Question 8. How many children did Burns have? John alluded to Burns's reputation as a ladies' man and more, but how many children did he have? Was it A, 6, B, 8, C, 10, or D, 12?
I always want to to Burns' defense on these ones, because Burns absolutely did have a number of kids with a number of different women, but he did legally provide for them all and claimed their fathership and all of that kind of stuff. So they weren't outcast, they weren't shamed as much, you know. So he was a bit. He could have done better, but he could have done a lot worse by the end of the day.
We've got a range of answers from an awful lot. which I think is fair comment. And F and Stephen. Yes, we've got some B's and C's coming in. We don't have that.
But I reckon after a couple of drams, Burns would also be roughly guessing.
Well, this is true. We don't have a lot for D, but in fact, the correct answer is D, as far as we know. I mean, it's hard to properly document this, but it's thought that he had 12 children by 4 different mothers. 9 of the kids were with his wife, Jean Armour, but only 3 of them apparently survived infancy. And she gave birth to his final child, their final child, a boy called Maxwell. And he was born, believe this or not, on the 25th of July, 1796. And that was the same day as Burns's funeral. So the day that Rabbie was being buried, Jean Armour was given birth to his 9th of 12 children. I mean, that's just kind of beggars belief, really. Right. On to question 9. Which US president was a huge admirer of Burns and could recite his works by heart? Was it A, George Washington, B, Abraham Lincoln, C, Ronald Reagan, or was it D, Donald Trump? Now, I'll say nothing, but
I know. I mean, you can discount a few. Like, which of these do you reckon can read?
Like I said, I'm saying nothing. I'll just leave the answers out there.
Oh, clear.
Harry thinks it might be Ronald Reagan. Adam, Leslie think it's Lincoln. Bishop Burnboy says not D. Andy thinks it's B. Brian B. Douglas B. Okay, I think we've got a kind of consensus there. The answer is B. It's Abraham Lincoln. And apparently he was, I didn't know this until I did a wee bit of research for the quiz, but he was apparently a huge fan of Burns, and he wrote in his diary in 1865, and I think it's worth quoting. He said in his diary, "From Shakespeare, I learnt the sonnets. From the Bible, the scriptures. But it was from that man," meaning Burns, "I learnt humanity." So there you go. And this is the president that was instrumental in ending the slave trade. So, he learnt humanity from Burns. That's quite powerful. But no word on whether Donald Trump is a fan. But let's not go there.
I love that. I love that. It's a great fact.
That question. How old was Burns when he died? And again, we've heard this already, but is it A, 32, B, 37, C, 45, or D, 57? So if you were paying attention, this is an easy one, but it's clear that it was too young, and he was taken from as too young, but what he did leave was an incredible legacy, and the legacy is even more astonishing when you consider that, you all know the answer to this one. The answer is that he died when he was 37, which, when you look at the volume of work that he left behind, it's really remarkable. The cause of death we can talk about is much disputed. There are various theories about how Burns died. Alcoholic excess is one theory. Venereal disease is another theory. Falling asleep in the snow after a big session with the boys at the Globe Tavern in Dumfries is another theory. But apparently it's most likely that he actually died, and I'd better read this out, of subacute bacterial endocarditis, secondary to chronic rheumatic heart disease. And that is according to the National Library of Medicine, who I think they should know what they're talking about. So lots of theories, but apparently it was something that was related to his rheumatism rather than any form of bad behavior or alcoholism or anything else. So there you go.
I loved that quiz, Richard. I thought that was great. The Abe Lincoln stuff, I really didn't know, and I'm delighted by. Big Brian Patterson in the comments said, it's interesting that he inspired Abe Lincoln, given that Burns nearly went to the Caribbean to join the slave trade. This has been a really live discussion around, obviously, with Black Lives Matter and the reassessing of Scotland's involvement in the slave trade. Burns is about the only man in Scotland at this time, certainly the only man in Dumfries, that isn't actively involved in the slave trade. And I'd encourage you to go and have a look at a Burns song called The Slave's Lament. It's a really beautiful song about slaves being taken from Africa to America. It's this beautiful lament, and it is considered to be the first time that a white person writes from the perspective of a slave, and it's a real anthem. So Burns had the chance to go and make money in the slave trade 3 times and took none of them. Instead chose to stay home and be poor. And I think that does speak for itself. But I see where you're coming from, Brian. I see where you're coming from.
Yeah, he certainly came close. And as we said earlier on, he was almost ready to get on that boat, and then his publication became a runaway success, and finally he had a bit of money in his pocket, and that changed his mind. But yeah, it's one of the great unanswered questions, isn't it? What would have happened if Burns had got on that boat and ended up in Jamaica working in the slave trade? We can only ponder, but what can we say? Different times, and just how can you imagine what it would have been like? He was in hard times, but we're
all glad he didn't. We're all glad he didn't. I think we can say that.
Exactly. Right, guys. I think that is us. Sam and Shani, I don't think are around. Oh, they are around. Fantastic.
Great.
I thought they disappeared, but no, they're still there. Good stuff. So Sam and Shani, brilliant. I thought you disappeared, but you're there. So that's fantastic. Ready to play us out. You've got a final set for this evening?
Indeed, we have. Indeed. Yeah, no, that was nothing to do with the fact I had to quickly run over the chords or anything. So we had the camera off. Nothing to do with that. We're going to finish things off with a wonderful song called Bro Bro Lads.
Brilliant. Over to you guys.
So yeah, Bro Bro Lads. It's we wanted to do this. We learned it recently, so it's kind of a song, I guess, rooted in this area almost where we're staying, celebrating the lads of Galashiels. And it's kind of sung from the perspective of a woman, and basically she's sort of defending the virtues of her kind of bonny lad of Galashiels, and sort of the virtues of true love versus kind of financial arrangements, or like marrying the laird's son, or that kind of thing. It's sort of it's kind of all about the true love in this song.
Yeah, it ne'er was wealth, it ne'er was wealth. The cup contentment, peace and pleasure.
So bro lads. It's got a good chorus. So yeah, feel free to sing along. And apparently this is like a big song in Galashiels, because it sort of celebrates the lads of Galashiels above all other lads. So, yeah.
All the best for Gala.
Oh, no way! We've got someone from Gala. Oh,
nice.
Nice to see the comments coming in. Yeah. Okay. Well, Kevin Ross, this is for you and your ilk, the lads of Gala. Apparently, according to the narrator of this poem, you're the best lads around. Bro lads on Yarrow Braes rove among the blooming heather, but Yarrow Braes nor Ettrick shores can match the lads of Gala Water. Bro lads, but there is one, a secret one, aboon them all. I love him better, and I'll be his, and he'll be mine, my bonny lad of Gala Water. Raw lads of the Yarrow Braes, they rove among the blooming heather, but Yarrow Braes nor Ettrick shores can rove among the blooming heather. Although his laddie was nae laid, and though I have nae muckle tocher, yet rich in kindest, truest love, will tend to flocks by Gala water. Raw lads on Yarrow Braes, they rove among the blooming heather, but Yarrow Braes nor Ettrick shores can match the lads of Gala water. Raw lads. It ne'er was wealth that carved contentment, peace or pleasure, but bands and bliss of mutual love. Oh, that's the chiefest world's treasure. Raw lads on Yarrow Braes, they rove among the blooming heather, but Yarrow Braes nor Ettrick shores match the lads of Gala water. Raw lads on Yarrow Braes, they rove among the blooming heather, but Yarrow Braes nor Ettrick shores can rove among the Gala water. Raw lads on Yarrow Braes, they rove among the blooming heather, but Yarrow Braes nor Ettrick shores can match the lads of Gala water. Raw lads.
Oh, what a tune! What tune! He's just such a clever poet, and this is one of those great ones that, as you say, match the words to the tune really well.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, they all do, but you know, this one, I don't know, has that. Do we have time for one more? I'm not 100% sure. I hope we do.
I think we probably do.
Okay, here we go. Oh, do we? Great.
Yes.
Nice. Okay, well, we'll finish off with a man's a man for all of that, because I just think it's such a wonderful message, and yeah, it's it feels almost like this song is sort of almost more needed than ever. You know, it's such a brilliant message in this song that kind of what matters is not wealth and the sort of superficial rank that's conferred by the powers that be and by authority, but the heart and universal brotherhood and universal respect and sort of the equality of peoples. So I think it's a very, very noble spirit to this song. Yeah, so it seems like maybe a nice one to kind of to finish on. So yeah, I'm sure you'll know it, so sing along at home. Yeah, thanks Richard for inviting us to play tonight. It's been really, really nice, really lovely for us to do a gig, but not just any gig. Yeah, to join you for a waltz night. It's been really, really nice.
Yeah, and celebrating Robbie Burns. Just we've heard so much about how wonderful he was, and yeah, big thank you to John, Alistair, James. Who else did we have? And the wonderful singer as well. I can't remember his name. But Westland Winds, beautiful.
Yeah, it's been really lovely and great to hear people's insights about the poetry and the life of Robbie Burns. It's been really kind of illuminating. So yeah, sing this one with us if you want. Man's a man. 3, 4. There for honest poverty that hangs its head and all that the coward's slave we passing by, we dare be poor for all that, for all that and all that, the toil's obscure and all that, the rank is but the guinea stum, the man's the gowd for all that. But though unhamely fare we dine, we're hard in grey and all that. Give fools their silks and knaves their wine, a man's a man for all that. For all that and all that, the tinsel show and all that. The honest man, though essay poor, is king of men for all that. You see on Birkie Catherled, where struts and stairs and all that. Hundreds worship at his word, he's but a coof for all that. For all that and all that, his ribbon star and all that. The man of independent mind, he looks and laughs at all that. Prince can mark a belted knight, a mark his duke and all. Honest man's burn his might in faith in manifold. For all that and all that, the dignities and all that, the pith of sense and pride of worth, a higher rank than all that. So let us pray that come it may, as come it will for all that. The sense and worth o'er all the earth shall bear the grief for all that. For all that and all that, it's coming yet for all that. That man to man the world over shall brothers be for all that. For all that and all that, it's coming yet for all that. But man to man the world over shall brothers be for all that. For all that and all that, it's coming yet for all that. But man to man the world over shall brothers be for all that.
Phenomenal, phenomenal.
Oh,
Thanks,
cheers,
guys. Thanks so much.
Brilliant, Sam. Brilliant, Shani. You've made our evenings, and
Yeah.
you know, you've lifted our spirits. What can I say? That was absolutely
Thanks so
sensational.
much. Yeah, I was lifted too. Very
Exactly,
much so.
right back
Yeah.
to you. Yeah,
cheers.
it's been great. Thank you.
Great stuff. Good to see you guys, and we'll see you again soon, I hope.
Take care.
Right. Cheers. Right, Ali, that's us. We've gone way over the expected time, but I thought I would just let it run, and everyone's having a good time, so why not? We've got nowhere else to go, right?
Well, yeah, exactly. I've not got a list of social engagements and rushing off to, Richard.
You have a good night.
I've absolutely loved it. I'd like to say cheers to Abdi in the comments as well. It's really cool to see you all about the place. Some of you are off in the Netherlands and Hong Kong, all about Austria. Some of you are about 2 miles from the house. Like it's really great to spend time in your company. And Richard, what a pleasure. Thanks for having me along.
Right, very welcome, Ali, and always good to see you and get your take on everything and get your youthful energy. So, cheers, Ali. Good night to you.
Cheers, man. A very good night to you.
Right, all the best. Good stuff. Well, that's us, guys. We're ready to wrap up. Huge thank you to everyone that's taken part tonight. Sam and Shani with the music has really made things exceptional. James popping in to tell us about some preparation for our burn suppers at home and the home dining kit. Don't forget that fantastic home dining experience. John McShane, what an immortal memory. That's one to live long in the memory. My pal Donnie Livingston with his Now Westland Winds, and Ali Heather as my fantastic co-host. Always brilliant to see Ali in the pub session. If you've not seen it already, there's a new issue of Unfiltered out today, and I should highlight an interview I did with Irvin Welsh of Train Spotting fame, and he has quite a lot to say about burns and about booze and many other things, so it's well worth checking out. Irvin's a whiskey fan. He's a member of the society, but certainly his take on burns is well worth reading. So check out the new issue of Unfiltered. Get your home dining ordered as soon as possible for Burns Night. The outturn of whiskey is coming out now next Tuesday, the 19th. There's been various things going on, but we've pushed it back to Tuesday, the 19th. So put that in your diaries and make sure you pick up some of these fantastic whiskies that me and Ali have been talking about tonight. Lots coming out on Tuesday, and some fantastic virtual tastings coming soon. So keep your eyes peeled with the emails about what's happening, and we'll be back in February with another virtual pub session. But until then, it's cheers from me and from everyone at the society. Here's to Rabbie Burns. Here's to keeping the spirits up, and all the best. Cheers.